Hey, what's up, everybody? Chad Calek here, back again with the In a Crowded Room podcast. And before we get to part 2 of episode number 28, my time spent with Motley Crue, I want to discuss one thing with you guys really quickly, which is monetization of the show. Now, there are two ways where you can monetize a podcast. One being YouTube's monetization system, which is becoming more and more tricky because YouTube really wants the web to be an after-school special scenario where if you talk about anything edgy, they want to take away your ability to actually run ads and receive money from advertisers. That obviously affects me because I want to tell you guys the truth about my experiences. And that doesn't mean I want to drop an F-bomb every other word, because I don't. But I do want to be real and honest with you about what has happened in my life. So when you hear these experiences, you know that nothing's being edited for the sake of advertisement. With that being the case, thus far, my viewpoint has been I'm simply going to tell the story, and if YouTube chooses to demonetize me, then so be it. But on the flip side, because I am very passionate about this show, and because I do want it to become a full-time part of my life, of course I want to be able to monetize it, but I want to make it very easy for all of you. There's two ways to do that, which you can do it through Patreon, or you can do it through PayPal's donation option. Because PayPal is pretty much universal, and because it allows you, the listener, the option to choose whatever donation level you want to make, we've chosen to go with PayPal. Does this mean that you will have to pay to listen to this podcast? Never. This will always remain free to the public. The option of making a monthly donation to the show is first and foremost for those who are able, for those who think that the show deserves it, and for those who want to make this process for me a lot easier than it's been. First off, I'd like to stop doing it in my house so Laura could just have some peace. That'd be nice. Secondly, I would like to eventually incorporate some of the people that have lived these moments with me so that we can both tell you the story simultaneously, as I think that would be something truly special. But that involves timing, travel, planning, all of those things. So there's a lot of goals that I have for the show. But first and foremost, it's just about establishing a financial foundation that covers the basic raw time that it takes to produce these segments. With your help, I hope that this is possible. I read all of your comments. I check the views every single day, not only on individual videos, but overall. And yes, this has been growing every single day, which is awesome. So if you enjoy the In a Crowded Room podcast and you want to make a financial contribution to the show, when it's over, just click the link below and you'll be taken to a page where you can decide what you want to do. Do you want it to be a monthly contribution? Do you want it to be a single episode contribution? It's all right there. It's very, very simple. And as far as any suggested amount, at a bare minimum, there's going to be 20 episodes per month. So if I were to receive $1 per episode, that would be incredible. But that's up for you to decide. If you're able to support, I want to stress that only if you're able to support. More than anything else, I just want to share these stories and I want this to grow. I love doing this. I love doing this, and I want to do it forever. So if you enjoy it and you can help, thank you in advance. Having said that, let's get to the rest of the story. Where I left off, Tommy Lee was just taking us down the hallway to meet the rest of the guys at Motley Crue, where he busted open the door, and as much as I would love to tell you there was strippers on poles and smoke bombs going off and lines of heroin from the doorway to the bathroom, they were watching the World Series. That's what was going on. There was an amazing tray of incredibly healthy food, a fruit and vegetable display that was incredible, deli meats and cheeses and little wieners on sticks and barbecue sauce. And Vince Neil was chilling on the couch watching the World Series. It was pretty cool. Tommy was like, yeah, these are the guys. And the first guy Tommy formally introduced us to was Nikki, who was there with Donna D'Erco, as I mentioned, from Baywatch. And she is every bit as beautiful in person as she was on the show. I was a very late bloomer when it comes to watching Baywatch. I've only actually seen 3 episodes. And the episodes that I've watched, all 3 were to see models. One was to see Pamela Anderson. One was to see Tracy Bingham because I worked with her on my first film I ever made, so I wanted to see her acting ability. And then the third was to see Donna D'Erco because I had heard that Nikki Sixx was in fact dating Donna D'Erco. Nikki was very cool, very, to business, like, he didn't spend a lot of time like digging into our lives or anything, but he was just kind of like, thanks for opening up for us. Tell me a little bit about yourself. We're excited to play with you, like that type of thing. Vince was very into the game, and I could tell that. He was very focused on the World Series. And I don't know if that's because he's a big sports fan or not, but he was zoned. And when you feel that, I'm never good at breaking that up. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't want to be like, hey, man, I know this is your backstage and you're watching the World Series, but give me your time. You know what I'm saying? So I was just like, cool, hey, what's up, Vince? I just wanted to meet you, shake your hand. And he was very, very, very kind and cordial. And that left Mick Mars. And Mick was in the corner leaning against a pole, and he had this small tray of vegetables, and he was just kind of picking at the tray of vegetables. And he had an older gentleman who I don't know who that was talking with him. And eventually, throughout this kind of 20, 30-minute session backstage with them, I made my way over to him. And it was very, very brief. He's not a huge talker as far as socializing. He wasn't bouncing around the room. But who did talk my ear off the whole time, and I loved every second of it, was Tommy Lee. Tommy has one of the coolest personalities ever. I see why he has gotten so many opportunities in Hollywood as the front man of so many different bands, besides being the drummer for Motley Crue. At that time, he was super excited to see us play, at least he said, because he had listened to the album and we were a rap metal band. And he started telling me about this brand new project he was in where he had this singer that was associated with the band Hed PE, who I love Hed PE. And I would go on years later in my life to work with Hed PE. And Index Case would eventually tour several tours with Hed PE, which is a weird combination that I had to Tommy because this Tilo that was working with Tommy Lee was going to be in a new project Tommy told me about called Methods of Mayhem. If you follow Motley Crue, then you're very, very, very familiar with Methods of Mayhem because this is the band that Tommy took on Ozfest, in which Tommy was the guitar player and the vocalist for Methods of Mayhem, which they also had a second rapper. So Tommy would rap, sing, / play guitar, and then Tilo would rap. And it was very cool. They were awesome. It was very much a new metal type of, Korn meets hip hop. That's kind of what they were. And Tommy was really interested in putting together this project. Now, it was weird timing. I remember thinking to myself, Motley Crue is back together to do this tour. And the big news was that they were starting their own record label. That was part of the reason why in each city, the winner of the Battle of the Bands would open up for them. It was a good way for them to source talent. So we had heard that they were looking for a band to sign, which Tommy confirmed to me. But when he started telling me about Methods of Mayhem, I was thinking, well, what is going on with this Motley Crue camp then? Because if you're back together and you're touring and you're starting your own record label and you're looking for a band to be on that label, but Tommy's doing this other thing, like what is really going on? It felt like somewhere there was like a crack in the dam that wasn't being talked about. So I actually did try to dig a little bit. I just asked him, I said, well, how does that work with, Motley Crue? And he just said, well, look, the other guys had different projects. Nikki has a couple of different projects that he's in. And this is after the split up. So Vince had left. They did the John Corabi album. And then Vince had come back. For those of you that don't know, there was one Motley Crue album without Vince Neil. And it is a banger of an album. I freaking loved it. And I think most Crue fans would admit that it's an awesome record. It is an awesome, awesome rock record. The tones on it are huge. The drums on it are huge. The guitar playing is probably some of the best that Mick Mars has ever done. But I would also agree with the greatest criticism, which is that it's not a Motley Crue record. It doesn't sound like Motley Crue. It doesn't feel like Motley Crue. It feels like an awesome different band that should have been called something else. So I was super excited. This was after that time period. Vince was back in the band. So it was cool. Tommy and I talked the whole time about this Methods of Mayhem project. He was so excited about it. He was telling me that, it was something fresh and new and exciting, and he was excited to be playing music that was like modern and hip, and he loved the Crue stuff, and it was nostalgic and it was fun for him, but he had to just keep things modern, and I totally understood that. So I ended up having something to eat. The fellas did as well. We had just gotten to the point where we started kind of having small talk with the different members of the band, and we didn't feel like we were in anybody's way. And right as that feeling set in, we hear 35-inch motor, we need you to the stage now. And it's our call. And it's like, oh my God, oh geez, I forgot. We haven't even sound checked yet. So I'm like, okay. So we run up to the stage, and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, we need you to wait here. And I'm like, okay, what are we doing? He's like, we just need you to wait. And we're like, okay. So we waited for like 35 minutes. We're just standing there. And I'm like, what is going on? Well, Motley Crue was going to come and do their sound check. And then right away, we had to do ours, like right away. And everything was already running late. So this was from Machine, the tour manager, who said, I just need you here. And the second we can, we're going to swap out. So they were 35 minutes late because the band was just late getting to sound check as well. So we just kind of stood there. And the whole time I was kind of bummed out. I was like, damn, I wish we just could have hung back there until they were ready to do sound check then. So they came out and they did their sound check. And from where I was standing, I was literally directly behind Tommy's kid. And I got a chance to watch him warm up. And I'll tell you what, guys, there is such a difference between an artist who plays as much as he can, like unsigned bands who are playing shows on weekends and practicing twice a week, versus guys who have done it every day of their life for 30 years. The musicianship is so crisp. It is so sharp. You watch it and you just see this grand separating divide between what it means to be a top caliber musician versus someone who has top caliber talent that has not honed it yet. Watching him warm up was unfreaking believable. It was incredible. I mean, he could do that stuff in his sleep. He could close his eyes. He would, he never missed a strike, never misgrabbed a stick, never missed any of his tricks that he does, throwing his, drumsticks 40 feet in the air and catching them on the downswing. I mean, he had done this so many times. It was just incredible. And the band sounded amazing. They sounded like the album. It was really, really cool. The only thing that was noticeable is Vince was getting older, and he didn't have the same wind. That's the one thing you can't reproduce. You can't reproduce lungs. And he has that really high-pitched, really, hard forcing voice that takes a lot of O2, takes a lot of oxygen. And he wasn't getting the same oxygen he used to. And that was a little noticeable. But his style is just so unique. Again, there's nothing like it in the world. To hear that live when nobody was in the auditorium, and to be right there at the front of house and hearing their monitors and listening to what they're listening to, it was incredible. It was totally incredible. So right as we're all standing there gawking in awe of the band, they wrap up, and it's our turn, right? So they wrap up, their drum techs come on, the guitar techs come on, all this stuff, and everybody in Motley Crue leaves but Tommy. And he's out at the board, and he's talking to their sound tech. So there was something, obviously, he didn't like or something. And I thank God this happened, because he was back there for a while. And we finally get all of our stuff set up, and I hear boom, 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 the succession of booms. And I know exactly what it is. It's the doors to the entire venue coming open on a timer. It's almost like a jail. Like these metal bars lock the doors and they all come open on a timer. And I'm like, no, you can't let the audience in the middle of our sound check. And the sound guy is just saying, all right, guys, mic up as fast as you can. Let's do this. And I'm like, they're going to do this? They're literally going to let this audience in while we're sound checking? Talk about anticlimactic. I mean, this will look second rate. And thankfully, I wasn't the only one who thought that. And this is reason number 2 that night that I thought Tommy Lee. Now, first reason was he made sure we got passes so we didn't have to stand behind the yellow lines, right? The yellow tape. The second reason I thought he was the coolest guy in the world that night is because right away he was like, what? What's going on? What's going on? Because he started seeing people were coming through. They were starting to come through. And you could hear the house manager say over the walkies, yeah, doors are open. And you could hear Tommy hop back on the walkies and go, shut those doors right now. This band gets a full sound check. Shut them right now. We got to hold for another 15, 20 minutes. Apologize to everybody. Get him out of here, though. And I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. He doesn't have to do that at all. At all. He can just walk off and be done and be concerned with himself. So they do. Thankfully, only a couple hundred people got through the door and were coming down the aisles before they ushered them back into the hallways, and they shut the main doors to the auditorium so we could sound check. And I was so thankful because, even if we only get like 25 minutes to open, which is actually a fairly long opening set, that's our 25 minutes, man. Like, that's our time. That's our time to win over every single person that we could possibly win over in that building. And there's just no mystique at all if you're watching a band sound check and then step off the stage just to step back on it 2 minutes later. It would have been terrible. It would have been terrible. But thankfully, again, because of Tommy Lee himself, he did not let that happen. So once they got everybody out of C.Y. Stevens Auditorium and we are plugged in and ready to sound check, I noticed that Tommy is just hanging back by the board. And I'm thinking, is he actually going to listen to a sound check? This would be super dope because he would get a chance to just hear us play, 2 or 3 songs before we played them again live, which I would hope he would watch, but you never know. We have no idea. But having heard from him earlier that they were looking to sign bands, I was like, this would be super cool. Now let me also say this. I didn't think there was any chance they would sign us. Just because Motley Crue needs to sign a modern rock act. That would make sense. They need to sign a band they could take on the road and foster, right? They need to turn their fans onto somebody, to the brand that they've built. And we did not fit that brand at all. But that doesn't mean that I didn't want him to watch us. Of course I did. We cared about that music. It meant a lot to us, So we run through our sound check, and Tommy is back there working with the sound man to actually mix us. And I think part of the reason he did that and part of the reason he enjoyed it was because of his Methods of Mayhem band, which was also a heavy metal / rap band like we were. So the entire sound check, all 20 minutes of it, Tommy's at the board adjusting. He's talking to us through the monitors. He's like, Chad, can you hear the drums? Can you hear this? You got that? You need more vocals? I mean, he was so into it. And I was like, what an awesome dude. Unbelievable. So reason number 3, Tommy's amazing. He actually mixed our band. Not only did he make sure we had a proper sound check, he mixed the friggin' band. So we get done with the sound check. We step off the stage. We're told doors are opening, but you're going on in like 7 minutes, which fair enough. Fair enough. Whenever you're the first opener, you know that you're not going to play to max capacity. It's just how it goes. It's cool. It's expected. It's part of it. But because the show was sold out in Ames, Iowa, which Motley Crue had never played before, they had never played Ames, everybody came out early. And in those 7 minutes, a good 95% of that auditorium was packed. They were in there. It was so loud. I was like, this is so freaking awesome. We get the green light. It's our time to start. We got to do it. We got exactly 25 minutes to play and get off that stage. We hit the stage and just crushed. And to be honest, I think from memory that people actually enjoyed it because I remember the applause being really loud in between songs. But the lights were so bright I could hardly see the audience from where I was standing. But more importantly, I was looking all over the place for members of Motley Crue, wondering, are they going to actually come out and watch us play the show? Because again, they have a record company, they're looking to sign a band, that type of thing. And I'm looking around, and I can't really see anybody, and I'm like, maybe they, didn't come out. And then I look over at my drummer, and he gives me the pointed eyes things, like look over your shoulder. And I look to the left of me, and about 6 feet away off to the left of the stage is Tommy. And he's giving me the double metal signs, and his tongue's out, and he's just rocking out. He is standing on the side of the stage, grooving so hard to our music, in which he stood there for a good 5 out of the 7 songs that we played. And after every song, he'd be like, yeah, yeah. I mean, like, he was so into it. And the coolest thing about it was, you always hear people say, you never want to meet your idols because they'll always let you down. If you haven't heard that, that's an old LA saying. You never want to meet your idols. They're human. They'll always let you down. Tommy was everything that I thought he would be and hoped he would be. It was so cool to have that kind of support and to see that somebody cared about these Iowa boys from nowhere, and to have idolized somebody that was now reciprocating this type of, passion for your music. Whether it lasted only for that moment, and if he forgot about us, for the rest of his life, fine. But in that moment, he was a fan of what we did. And I can't even put words to that feeling. I mean, that was just like, dude, you can't dig what we do. What you do is the coolest shit in the world. Is it possible you could truly like what we're doing? And again, in those scenarios, it's not like he has any reason to lie. It was a truly special, special night. We got done playing. The crowd was great. I remember the final applause was very loud. It was really cool. But I was just mesmerized by all of it. We got our stuff off the stage right away, and the machine comes up and says, hey guys, you can hang out. You've been cleared to hang out on the side of the stage and watch a show if you want, or we have tickets for you if you want that as well. And they were like front row tickets. When I say front row, there's the front row, then there's like this metal media box area where cameramen can take photos, and then there's like where our tickets were, which is like, an open area where only family members get to, hang out, and longtime friends, things like that, I finally decided it's just cooler to watch it from the side of the show because I'm so into the production as well, and I was so into the business aspect of it, and it was amazing. And the only thing that was missing for me was Laura. I wanted her there so badly to have this experience. But something beautiful happened, and I felt like, man, maybe this is why this had to be like this. And I do that sometimes. I find reason in things, but Motley Crue ended up playing Home Sweet Home, which is, of course, like their anthem. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful song. And on that song, Tommy plays piano. And he's playing Home Sweet Home, and I've just got this incredible visual of it. I'm like 20 feet away, from the band as they're playing it live. And I call Laura, and she picks up the phone, and I'm just holding my phone open. And all she can hear is Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue, which was just really special at that time, because when we saw Dr. Feelgood, when they played that song, it was like a special moment between us. So she knew that I was in the middle of a dream, and that a promise that I made her had been fulfilled, and I would be home soon. And that promise was fulfilled. I was able to tell Tommy about him flying his drums across the Civic, how I bought a ticket to that show. And it inspired me so badly to want to be a performer. And I told him, in that moment, man, I've never said this about anybody else, but I wanted to be you. I wanted to know what that felt like at the top of that Civic Auditorium, rocking out to AC/DC, you know. And he was he was really stoked by the story, and you could tell that it touched him personally, and he was just so, he had so much gratitude. He was so gracious, like, and you just see that in real pros. And I've worked with all kinds of, God, you know, celebs over the years, but in the great ones, the real pros, the thing that they never lose that appreciation for the fan, that appreciation for the person, you know, that will have $200 to their name, but they'll spend, you know, half that just to come see a show. You know, the person that'll wait in line 5 hours in the rain so they can get close to the front of the stage. The true artists, the truly, truly gifted, successful pros, they get that. And when it comes to Tommy Lee, that's the one thing about him that I hope this story drives home, is that he's a real dude that gets it. He has such a positive energy. It's incredible. And he's just a great guy. He's a great guy. As fate would have it, years later, Laura would be a school teacher in Malibu, in which Tommy and Pam's kids actually went to her school. It was an incredible time. The band was incredible. They were all great guys. Like I said, I could tell they were all doing different things and were focused on different things. Mick was just very, very quiet, as you could imagine. You know, Nikki was just, you know, he was with Donna for one. And I know when you're with your girl, like that's you're with your girl, you know, and I totally get that. You know, and you could tell Vince was just kind of dialed in to taking care of Vince, and I understood that too. So the night actually went a lot like I expected, except I didn't expect backstage to be that chill. It was really laid back and chill. But it also taught me how it's done at that level, you know, when you're just nothing but a pure professional. And as exciting as the dirt is, that side of their life when they were completely debaucherous, just as impressive to me is when you see somebody come from that and become the consummate professional. It was really a special, special event. And for those of you that stayed up and watched the dirt, I have now seen it all, which I'm actually going to do a separate podcast that'll be kind of like an add-on to this one. I'll try to get it done this weekend, if not the next couple days. And I'm going to do a review of the dirt. So be looking for that as well. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. Check it out. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts. Until then, my friends, as always, thank you so much for listening to episode 28, part 2 of the In a Crowded Room podcast. I'll be back tomorrow with more. All the best.